everybody, this is Shanelle Van Dyke with Quality Reporting Services, and today I'm going to give a quick tutorial that covers the cart navigation basics. So the agenda for today's quick little webinar tutorial is going to provide you with step-by-step instructions on how to log into the cart application for both inpatient and outpatient, how to reset your password, view and edit your security questions, and then overall the navigation of cart, how to create user accounts for you or backup accounts or any new users at your facility that might be helping you with the cart abstraction, how to create or edit a provider account, which is for your hospital, and then set your provider measure preferences, which is it pretty much deems whatever core measures you're going to collect and abstract and report on for each given time period. And then I'm going to show you how to add a patient, find existing patients that are already in your database, how to enter an abstraction, how to edit existing abstractions, and then how to run reports. And then later on, I'm also going to give another quick webinar tutorial on how to actually export your data out of cart and upload it to QNet for submission to CMS and for Flex. So right now I'm going to exit out of the full screen view. I'm going to share my desktop. So bear with me 1 minute if there's a slow delay. Close out of all this stuff. Okay, right now you guys should be seeing my desktop. Ignore all the other items. I just did the view larger so that you could see the icon. If you have cart installed on your computer, you will see this icon right here. It's QMS 30. It's the platform that the cart application is housed on. So I'm going to double click the icon. And a screen will pop up saying QualityNet Quality Management System. My internet is being a little slow. And if you have this newly installed on your computer, if it's the first time that you're logging in, it will be a little slow because it has to load everything and do the configuration settings on the back end. So it may take a few minutes. Okay, now when you bring up the application, you'll come to a window that says choose which application you want to log into, and I have the option to do inpatient or outpatient. I'm going to select outpatient and hit OK. And it will bring up a login window. It should bring up a login window. I'm just going to, if this pops up, if it takes a while, you can click Run in background, and then the login window will appear. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my user ID and password that I've already set up. And I, again, apologize for the delays. I just installed this newly on my computer. So I'm going to get a warning, and you're just going to go ahead and hit accept to the terms and conditions. And then you'll be kind of looking at a blank screen except for these options up here in the top left-hand corner of the screen. So let's say you're logged in and you want to add a new user. You would go up to administration and click on user. This is pretty much where you're going to navigate through a majority of the application. Under administration, it gives you all of, for the most part, the main tabs or main components of the cart outpatient application. So I'm going to click on user. And here you will see in the user summary section of the screen all of the users that have been established on the cart application that's housed on your computer. So you'll see all the details over on the right-hand side of the screen are mine. And let's say I want to create a backup, which for most of you, I would strongly encourage creating a backup So let's say you already have an account established, but let's say you have problems with getting locked out because the password requirements are so strict. I think you have to have at least 8 characters. You have to have uppercase and lowercase, as well as numbers and special characters. And now they're saying that you can't even have a dictionary word in there. So you can't have like the word Monday with like a 0 instead of an O. It won't let you use any kind of dictionary word. So a lot of people are having problems with getting locked out. If you get locked out of cart and there's no other person to get logged in to reset your account, it is kind of a strenuous and tedious process to contact the QNet Help Desk, have them walk you through uploading your data file for them to hack into to reset all the accounts, and then walk you through re-downloading it and establishing it on your computer. So I strongly encourage backups. For the most part, a majority of you Wyoming Critical Access hospitals have reached out to me, and I've walked you through creating a backup for myself. So if you get locked out, you can just call me. I walk you through getting in logged in through the backup account to reset your password. It takes like maybe 3 minutes for me to do that with you to both set up the account, and if you ever get locked out, if you call me, we can get you back in within 2 minutes versus contacting the QNet Help Desk, which can be drawn out for days, even a week or so if it's close to a data submission deadline. So if you don't have a backup account created, please contact me. I'll walk you through it. I'll keep track of the backup so I know what it is. So at any point if you get locked out, you call me, we can get back in. So let's say I want to add a backup or a new user. Let's say you have a new employee at your facility that's going to help you. You go up here and you click on this green plus sign, which is for a new user. And over on the right-hand side of the screen, all of the user details went blank. So I'm going to create a backup right now. And you always want to make sure that the backup and or new users are system administrators, because if you do set them up as an abstractor, all they are able to do is abstract data into the system. They're not able to create accounts, reset accounts, or any of that stuff, run reports, submit the data. So system administrators are always a good idea just to have everybody at that as the default. And then activation date will default to today's date. And then you just want to, down here in this box, it should be set up for your hospital name. So for example, Cook County, Powell Valley, North Bighorn, South Bighorn, you name it. Your name should appear down here, and it should be followed by your hospital's CMS certification number, also known as CCN. And for the state of Wyoming, the Critical Access Hospital CCN starts with a 5313, and then the last 2 digits are specific to your hospital. Anyway, so you highlight the provider, and then you go up here below the word file. It looks like a 3.5 floppy disk, and if you hover over it, it says save. So I'm just going to hit save, and it'll bring all the user detail from the right-hand side of the screen over into the user summary. And that's it. It's as simple as that for creating a new user account. I'm going to go up to administration now and click on provider. And this is the information that actually has all of your hospital's information. So over here on the right-hand side of the screen, it should be set up for your hospital's name. So again, Powell Valley, North Bighorn, you name it, and then you put in your CMS certification number. Do not worry about the National Provider ID. It is not a requirement. And then down below here is where the provider preferences are. I'm sorry, I made my font big so it was easier for you guys to see it during this demonstration. So I'm going to have to scroll a lot. But if you see here, see if I can drag this. Nope, I can't. Up here in the time period dropdown, it'll default to the most current date. So you want to always make sure that whatever time period that you're getting ready to abstract data for, the preferences are set. So let's say, you know, first quarter 2017 to fourth quarter. I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll see all of the individual topics. So here you got your outpatient AMI and all of the individual data elements or measures underneath that topic. If you just check this box, it automatically checks all the measures by default. So I'm just going to, you'll see how I unchecked it. Now if I check it again, all the measures under AMI will check. And then again, I'm sorry I have to do this, but I can scroll down further, and you'll see all the other ones. So here you got your outpatient chest pain. And again, if I uncheck this, all the measures will automatically uncheck. If I check it again, all of them will check. So you just want to make sure those are always marked. And for the most part, all the outpatient measures in here, you want to make sure you're reporting on because they are part of the MBQIP Flex reporting requirement. So after I modify and or check those, I can go up to this 3.5 floppy disk again and hit save, and it'll save it. And so that's pretty much the basics for creating a user and or modifying your preferences. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have a couple more quick tutorials for how to export and upload your data, but then I also will have another tutorial about how to, if you just have CART newly installed on your computer, how to log in the first time, how to set up your provider account, set up your user account, log out, log back in to set up your security questions and your user ID. So those, we're breaking them into segments. So for the purpose of just this tutorial today, it's just navigation once your system has already been set up. So let's say, I'm just going to close these tabs here. Let's say I'm logging in and I want to start entering in a patient. I will go up to administration and I will click on patient. And on this screen is where I would start entering a patient. You'll notice over here on the right-hand side, I can start entering in the patient details. But what I want to show you is if you already have been using CART for quite some time, there should be a database stored with all your patients. So if I just click search, all the patients that I've entered to date since I've had CART will appear here on the patient summary side of the screen. So if you have a patient that comes in on a regular basis, like every couple of quarters, and you're like, hey, I know I entered their information. If you click search, all your patients will appear, but you can also go one step further and be like, hey, you know, Mickey Mouse has been in here before, I want to find Mickey Mouse. You can go up here to the search fields and go by first name, last name, birth date, their patient identifier, which is their medical record number, not their visit number, because the visit number, as you know, changes. The patient's medical record never does. So I can select any of these options, and I can say contains, equals to, and then this is where I would specify what the first name contains or equals, and then click search, and it would only bring up the patient that their first name, let's say, starts with Mickey. Anyways, so once I have, and so I'm just going to go ahead and clear this, but once I have, let's say I want to use this existing patient, all I could do is either double click anywhere over here under patient summary, or I could scroll down and click add abstraction, and it'll bring up this add abstraction window. And I'm just going to put in a random encounter date. Well, actually, no, let me exit out of this. Let's say I want to enter in a new patient. I'm going to go up here and click the green plus sign for a new patient. It'll clear all these fields again. And this time let's do Fred Flintstone. Everybody knows the Flintstones. And I'm doing shortcuts right now. If you are a mouse person, you can simply click on these drop downs and select them and see all the options available. What I do is I tab from one field to the next. So like here I put in Fred, I tabbed, because I'm a keyboard person, shortcuts. Then I tabbed to last name, entered it, tabbed to the next one, and I just simply hit M and it brought up male. If I hit F, it'll bring up female. So I'll hit M again. Oh, sorry, for whatever reason that didn't work. And then same thing with race. I just put W and it brought up the first option. Same with Hispanic ethnicity. I just put in an N and it brought up no. If I do Y, it'll change it to yes. And then I'm going to tab to the next postal code, and I'm just going to put in whatever. Patient identifier, I'm just going to make that up. Provider, this should default to your facility only. So in the drop-down, you should see your hospital name. And then I'm going to hit add patient. Patient has been modified. Yes, save changes. It'll put it over into the patient summary. And then I can either select it to double click, or I can go over here and do add abstraction. I'm going to show you that I can just double click and it'll bring up the edit add abstraction screen. So I'm just going to make up an encounter date. Let's say this is a 4th quarter case, so I'm going to do October, let's say 1st, 2016. Arrival date, arrival time, I'm just going to make up a time. The UTD is unable to determine. If you are unable to determine the time the patient arrived, you would select this box right here. The measure set in the drop-down, you have the option of all the topics: AMI, chest pain, ED throughput, pain management, or stroke. I'm just going to select chest pain. The abstractor ID, this will default to all of the user accounts that are in the system. So if you're the only one, it should just default to you. But if there's more than one person, then you would have to select yourself in the drop-down. The abstraction date will always default to today's date. And if for some reason the finish button doesn't enable for you after you complete these fields, just simply click in the comment box and the finish button should enable. So I'm just going to click finish. And again, I apologize. My system's running a little slow today. I need to run some diagnostics on it. Do a scan. Might have a virus. Anyways, okay, so now I'm in the abstraction screen for this patient. For this first question that says, would you like the questions to be enabled or disabled appropriately per the measure algorithms, or do you want all questions enabled? What this means is it follows the appropriate version of the specifications manual for this time period. It's programmed for it. So what it does, you always want to do enable, disable questions appropriately. And the reason for that is if a question is not eligible for abstraction, it will disable it. So see how question 4 right here is disabled? Right now it's saying I don't have to answer that question, and same with number 5. So here's kind of a bad example, but for example, if you answer no, the patient wasn't a smoker, then the following question were asked if smoking cessation counseling or counseling was given would be disabled, because obviously they're not a smoker. Obviously those questions are no longer in here. They've been removed, but that's just an example. So for here, you always want to do enable, disable questions appropriately. Here, you can start typing in the data element for this. So like the CPT code, which unfortunately I don't know any off the top of my head anymore. But so the EM code in this dropdown, you can just select, whichever one applies. So I'm just going to randomly select one for this demonstration. And then number 3 enables, and it says what was the patient's discharge code for the outpatient setting. Again, you can start typing in 1, 2, 3, or whatever, or you can use the drop-down and select one of the options here. And for the purposes of outpatient, I know with chest pain and AMI, you want to pay attention to the specifications manual. And the reason being is that if I select, let's say, hospice home, pretty much for the most part, let me just show you here, payment source. If you go over to the top left-hand corner of the screen, all of these questions here, the ones in the bold black lettering, are those that are required to be answered before the abstraction can be defined as complete. See up here where it says pending? That's because the abstraction is not complete. So I'm going to click on payment source so it skips to payment source after I select, let's say, hospice home. And then I'm going to do payment source is, let's say, non-Medicare. It's going to give me an error. Response given for discharge code is not included in the hospital outpatient population for chest pain. So I'm going to hit OK. And the reason being is that for AMI and chest pain, there's only like 2 or 3 discharge codes that are eligible. So I'm going to click on these little, you'll notice after every question there's a little blue circle with a question mark. If you click on that, it'll bring up the appropriate page or pages specific to that question and that question only. So once this gets loaded, I will show you what I'm talking about. And again, it's programmed to the right version of the specs manual based on the encounter date that I put in. So it knows what version of the manual to pull up and what page or pages to pull up specific to just that question. So, excuse me. Okay, so here it shows me what the allowable values are for the discharge code, but if I scroll down, and it's taking a minute to load, I apologize. Down here, it'll give you some notes for abstraction, like some examples, some suggested data sources on where to find that information in the chart, inclusion and exclusion criteria. So here, you will see inclusion guidelines for abstraction. It'll give you the information for value 1, value 3, and value 5. And it'll tell you what's excluded. But where is it at? Here it shows you all the options, but it's going to say, now let me see if I can find it. If the medical record states that the patient is being discharged to another hospital and does not reflect the level of care that the patient will be receiving, select value 4A. So it's telling you what if scenarios on how to best answer this. And I apologize because it should say exclusion, and it should show you the options to reflect that. So I'm going to exit out of this. This might be one of the known issues. So I'm just going to show you right here. If I do general inpatient care, that's one of the allowable values. So I can go ahead and go to the next data abstraction question. So I selected non-Medicare. And notice how I didn't get an error message. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, I'm going to submit this as a help desk ticket, but the manual does show the inclusion criteria. I know for ED throughput and the other topics, I think it's just AMI and chest pain where you can only select general inpatient care, or I believe it's the Department of Defense Veterans Administration. Those are the only two allowable values for chest pain and AMI that are included. But as you'll notice, this one obviously is included, so now it's enabling these other questions for me to answer. It's going to say, hey, what was the principal diagnosis code? You can either use the drop-down, which takes some time to try and find it, to select whatever the code is. And honestly, I don't know any of the codes off the top of my head, so I apologize. So I'm just going to randomly select one, and then I'm going to hit Tab. And it'll give me an error message. If the diagnosis code is not an eligible code for the outpatient chest pain, and it'll tell you where in the table to look for the appropriate codes that are eligible for chest pain. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit ignore, or you can do undo and it'll delete it. I'm going to hit ignore. But my point for today is just to show you navigation. Again, I can click on this little blue circle, and again, it'll bring up the window appropriate for this data element. It'll say, hey, this is the definition of that question. This is what it means. This is where you can find the information in the chart, and so on and so forth. But it used to, oh, here you go. Right here, this link will bring up the appropriate ICD-10 codes that are for chest pain. I'm not going to bring it up because I'm worried it's going to freeze. So I'm just going to close out of this just so you know that it is in there. Oh. I hope that I'm not having problems. It did, of course. I apologize. Let me just get out of this. I don't know why that came up. Okay, my apologies. So anyways, I just want to show you cart navigation in terms of how to get in and out of the abstraction. So as you'll see, because I didn't put in appropriate code, all these other questions over here in the top left-hand corner are not in like a bold black, so they don't have to be answered in order for the case to go complete. If I were to scroll down here, you'll see all this stuff is disabled, and it's because I didn't put in the right diagnosis code. But what I do want to show you is down here at the bottom, I constantly get questions about, hey, what are these physician identifiers? This stuff, if you choose to use these two fields, are not, when you export and upload your data to CMS for submission, they don't go with it. This is for internal tracking purposes only, and it's for the reports. So if you want to do like physician scorecards, then this is the right these are the right fields to use. This is how you would go about doing it. So what I want to caution you though is, let's say you have 3 physicians at your facility. Let's say Dr. Smith, Dr. Williams, and Dr. Johnson. If you just put in Smith in all lowercase one time, and then another time put in Smith all capital, and then another time put Smith with just a capital S, when you go to run the reports on Smith, that is going to be programmed or identified as 3 different doctors, even though it's just Smith, because it is case sensitive. So what I would encourage you to do is use either the physician's UPIN number or come up with a numbering system. Like let's say you have the 3 doctors, so you could say Smith is 1, Williams is 2, and Johnson is 3. So if I put in a 1 here and hit save, when I go to run a report on physician 1, I know that that's Dr. Smith. Or if I run it on physician 2, that's Dr. Williams or whatever. So that's how you could go about doing that. If you're going to put in their name, just be consistent with all caps, all lowercase, or whatever. So that when you run the reports, it does pull up all of the cases specific to that physician. So anyways, let's say I have to rush to a meeting, but I'm not done doing this abstraction. If I go up to the top left-hand corner, again, that little 3.5 floppy disk, and I hit that saves it. And you'll still see that it did save, but I have edit errors to complete. So my case is still pending, but I have errors that I need to fix. But at least my case is saved. So I can close out of this by, you'll see here each tab, like if I click here, it'll take me back to the patient screen. It's giving me an error message because I didn't fix my errors. So I'll just hit OK, and it'll bring me back. So let me just get rid of the diagnosis code so I don't keep getting that error message. Again, I apologize for how slow my computer is being. Okay, so I'm just going to go up and hit save. And it's pre-populated again. Bear with me. Okay, so now it's back to pending. So if I click close here, it'll bring me back to the patient screen, and I can go to my meeting or whatever. Let's say I'm back from my meeting and I want to bring up that abstraction. I go up here and I go to abstraction, and I click on search. And then once on this screen, I can hit search again, and it'll bring up all the abstractions I've ever entered to date. The one thing I want to caution is if you've been using CART for a while and you have hundreds of cases in here, up here in this little field, it'll say 1 of 50 of 200 or 1 of 99 of 300 or whatever. So you need to make sure that you're not just being knowledgeable in the fact that if you have a lot of abstractions in here, you're not seeing them all. You need to pay attention to the numbers up here. And you can navigate through the pages that are displayed by using these arrows here, which unfortunately I can't show you because I don't have enough abstractions entered. But let's say I want to find the abstraction that I was working on. Again, you can use these search fields here to do first name, last name, contains or equals, and then type in. But I can see right here, here's my Fred Flintstone. So I can either click on him so he's highlighted and hit edit abstraction, or I can just go up here and just double click him, and it'll bring back up the abstraction screen. Slowly but surely it will bring up the abstraction screen. Okay, so here is the abstraction screen. Now I can go through and I can finish entering my abstraction. Again, I just want to point out, once you're done with the abstraction and you hit save, you want to make sure that this pending goes to complete. And here's why. I'm going to close out of this and get back to the abstraction screen. See how all of these are pending? When you go to export and upload your data, you want to make sure all of the cases that you're highlighting to submit say complete. Because if I were to upload all of these cases with that pending status, QNet is going to reject all of them. QNet will only accept completed cases. So one thing to just pay attention to when you get ready to go submit your data is, if you see that 1 or 2 of your cases are pending, you want to make sure that they're complete. so that they don't get rejected and that all your cases are successfully imported and accepted into the QNet website. So that's the gist of navigating through CART in terms of abstraction and users and so on. Again, once you have multiple screens open, like I'm just going to do this as an example. I'm going to click up provider as well. You'll see there are tabs here. So once I actually have gone to each one of these locations, I don't always have to go up to administration and select one of them. You can see all these little tabs here. So I can go from the provider screen to the abstraction screen to the patient screen just by clicking on those tabs. Again, I can also close them by clicking the little X's next to them. The other option, and we, for the purpose of having a quick little tutorial, I'm not going to dive into, but you can always run reports by clicking on report, and there is just a plethora, of information here that you can run. You can run it by physician. You can run it by the person who is abstracting it by looking at the abstraction detail. You can look at all of the cases and how each measure has failed. You can just look at the measure summary, which provides you just with the performance of how you're doing across the topics and the measures. You can look at trending over time, and then you can just look at the measures as a whole. I would strongly encourage you to play around with the reports, but again, they're all here, and they're very easy. So let's just say I click on measures. Here I would just, a provider should default to your hospital name. I can select whatever topic, chest pain, AMI, whatever. If I want to, I can run it by physician or all physicians. This is where that UPIN or like the 1 or the 2 type of information would come in. And then I would put in the encounter date, which you could do a month and you could do a quarter. And then you would hit OK and it'll bring up the report. I'm going to actually close out of this because one thing I want to show you as a last minute thing is if I go up to security, I can click change password or change security answer. So let's say it has been so long and you keep getting locked out of CART because you can't remember how you answered your security questions. Here's how you can find out how you answered them. I'm going to click change security questions. It's going to ask for your password. And then it's going to say it's going to bring them up. So here's where you can change and or edit them. One thing that I want to point out is you have to answer a minimum of 6. So let's say I'm just going to, for the purpose of this, I've answered 6, but if the OK button doesn't enable after I answered the 6th one, just click in an empty field and the OK button should enable. But one trick I want to show you is the print screen option. The security questions are case sensitive. So let's say you answered them in all capitals, all lowercase, you put a space and you don't remember. And that's why when you go to answer your security questions, when you forget your password, you're getting locked out. Here's a quick way to remember. If on your keyboard there is a print screen button, it is usually in the top row of keys on your keyboard. If you click print screen and then let's say bring up a Word document, I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK because I already did the print screen button. And Word comes up. I'm going to just do a Control V or right click and hit, oh, my paste button isn't enabled. I'm going to do a Control V and it's going to paste my screenshot. So now you can either print this off or save it somewhere on your computer in like your password folder or CART folder or whatever, and now you'll always know how you answered your security question. I'm going to go back to the CART screen. The reason for this is, again, when you forget your password, I'm going to go up here and go to security and do a log out. When you forget password, you will click forgot password. It's going to ask what your user ID is, which I was just, let's show you the error message, but let's go, S. Van Dyke, and do forgot password. It's going to ask you 3 of the security questions. And after you answer those, you'll click OK. And if you answered them correctly, it'll say, OK, create a new password. And at that time, you can create a new password. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to do that. Another quick thing I want to show you is before you even get logged into CART, you can do About Quality Management System. And here it'll show you what versions you're running so you can make sure, okay, for inpatient, I'm running 4.19.1. For outpatient, I'm running 1.15. And those are the most current up-to-date versions which allow you to do extractions all the way until the end of 2017. If you are running older versions, please contact me and let me know. I can give you or your IT person the instructions for the upgrade. If your IT isn't available, I can walk you through doing the upgrade yourself, and I can keep track of the version numbers that you have so that whenever there's a new release or an update, I can reach out to you and say, hey, you know, you're running this version and there's a new one, you need to work on getting it updated. You can also, if you don't know whether or not those versions are the right ones, once you log in, if I go up to administration and patient, and let's say I start entering in a patient, I'm just going to use an existing one. If I put in a date up here, let's say I'm going to do 2018, because I know there isn't a version available yet for that. And I go, you'll see nothing is populated in the measure set because I don't have the correct version available. So let's say you're trying to enter in a 2017 case and you run into this issue. It's because you don't have the current version available to do any of your 2017 cases. So I'm just going to hit cancel. Another good way to also know is if I go up to administration and click on provider, down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen under the provider preferences, you will see the time period box. And if you don't have, let's say you see this as your default and you don't see 2017, you know right there that you do not have the most current version available. So I'm going to just close out of these, hit no, and I'm going to go to security. If I go to security and do a log out, it will always bring me back to, and this is a glitch in the system, to the outpatient login. It doesn't bring me back to the option of, hey, you can select inpatient or outpatient. That's the downside. I'll show you. If I hit log out, it's always going to bring me back to the outpatient login. I don't know why it does that, but I'm going to hit cancel, and it will exit me out of the system. I'm going to go back to my QMS 30 icon, double-click it. And just real quickly, I'm just going to show you inpatient navigation is identical to outpatient. The only difference is there's two different logins. So here I'm going to select inpatient and hit OK. And then I'm going to wrap this up because I didn't want this call to be too long. The navigation is a little bit longer than the other stuff. The export and upload presentation demonstration should be 10 minutes or less. Same thing with logging in and setting up CART for the first time should be about 12 minutes or less. The navigation itself obviously takes a little bit longer. Once I'm in, you're going to see the exact same screens that you saw in outpatient. You're going to get a warning, accept the terms and conditions, and again, boom. Up here, you're going to have all the same options. You're going to navigate the same way. Administration, patient screen is identical. User screen, identical. Provider screen is identical, except for, of course, the preferences. They're going to be all inpatient topics and measures only. And for the purposes of Flex MDQIP requirements, the only required inpatient measures are the ED immunization 2 measure. So I'm going to just scroll over here. Again, I apologize. Oh, I went a little too far. You'll see IQR IMM 2 right here. This is the only one that's required. However, there is, I would say, at least 75% or 80% of you who are also doing the sepsis and the VTE, and I believe even a handful of you are also doing all the ED one as well. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, anytime you go to exit out of the system, you can either go to security, go to log out, and hit cancel, and it'll close out. Or you can go to the top right-hand corner of the screen and hit close. And it should, at some times, prompt you, depending on how many changes you've made. It'll say, changes have been modified. Would you like to back up the database or have the database be archived? I can't remember the exact verbiage. Always click yes, because it backs up everything that you're doing to your hard drive. So when you get that prompt, always click yes, because it'll back everything up. And I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint here for a second. The slides, I actually just showed some screenshots of what the CART application looks like when you get into it, the login screen, as well as some screenshots on QNet as far as once you go to submit your data. But again, there's going to be a quick 10-minute webinar tutorial on just how to export and upload your data. But the other thing I want to show you is included in the slides are helpful resources for outpatient and inpatient. All these are hyperlinks on, again, there is an older CART basics as well as a patient setup, abstraction, import, export, links to the specifications manual for each area, and so on. Some of those are a little dated. That's why I'm doing these more current updated tutorials for the Wyoming Critical Access Hospitals. But there are some helpful resources if you're interested in checking those out. And then finally, I'm just going to close out, leave this screen open for a quick second for contacts related to, if you're specifically have questions about Flex in general or funding and all that stuff, you need to reach out to Kyle Cameron, the new Wyoming Flex coordinator. If you have questions about core measure data, QHI, and Flex, you can also reach out to Rochelle Spinarski. And then anything related to MBQuip as far as abstracting your data, entering your data, and getting it submitted on time to meet all the requirements, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, CART, QNet, or even ED transfer, please reach out to me. And with that being said, thank you